Hello, and today we will be talking about cells. So there are many different types of cells. What makes human different from, let's say, a plant or bacteria? Humans are different to these organisms in several ways, and one of them is the structure of a cell. Cells are the basic building blocks of life. Cells make up organisms from huge elephants to tiny ants. Without cells, nothing will be able to live. There are two big groups of cells, and the first is called the prokaryotic cell. Prokaryotic cells are basically mostly bacteria, and they lack something called a dense nucleus. A nucleus is it's like the thing that gives instructions to a cell. And the reason why prokaryotic cells do not have a dense nucleus is because they do not need to perform complicated motions. This is what a prokaryotic cell looks like. A eukaryotic cell, on the other hand, has a nucleus because it can perform much more complicated things. A human cell is also part of a eukaryotic cell, and an animal and a plant cell. I mean, humans are also animals, but they are also part of a eukaryotic cell. So this is the diagram of a eukaryotic animal cell, and this is another diagram for a eukaryotic plant cell. To summarize, the biggest difference between a eukaryotic cell and a prokaryotic cell is that a eukaryotic cell has a nucleus, whereas a prokaryotic cell doesn't. This is a short quiz that I prepared. Is this a eukaryotic cell or a prokaryotic cell? The answer is that this is a eukaryotic cell because, as you can see, there is a big dot inside the cell which represents a nucleus. Try this question as well. This is actually a eukaryotic cell because, as you can see, there are many different dots inside the cell. Finally, is this a eukaryotic cell or a prokaryotic cell? The answer is that it is a prokaryotic cell because, as you can see, there are no dots inside the cell. To move on, there is something called organelles inside a cell, which are basically which are very similar to organs of a human body. The first is the nucleus, which gives instructions to the cell. The second is mitochondria, which provides energy which is needed in order for our body to function properly. The cytoplasm is the fluid part of the cell. Much similar to water, a cell has something called a cytoplasm in order to move around freely. A cytoskeleton performs very similar functions to the skeleton inside our body and provides the cell with structural support. The cell membrane is the layer that covers the cell. Vesicles are like boxes that transport material into and out of the cell. Vacuoles are small storage materials that stores different kind of things. Lysosomes are the recycling trucks of the cell, and they can kill things such as bacteria or viruses that come into a cell. A rough endoplasmic reticulum, also called the rough ER, makes something called proteins that are very essential to our body. And a smooth ER creates something called lipids that are also needed in order for our body to function properly. The difference between rough and smooth ER is that whereas rough ER has ribosomes on it, smooth ER doesn't. A ribosome is the site where a protein is made, and they sometimes stick to rough ER as well. The Golgi apparatus are the mailboxes of a cell and packages things and sends them to different cells, or also brings in other things into the cell. Plant cells are very similar to animal cells, except they also have a permanent vacuole, a chloroplast, and a cell wall. The permanent vacuole, also referred to as the central vacuole, stores different materials and allows more water into the cell. A chloroplast is very similar to mitochondria, but instead it uses sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide to produce sugar and oxygen. They are also green. A cell wall provides shape and structure to a plant cell. These are the differences that I listed in a table format. The arrangement of plant and animal cells are very different. A plant cell is more regular, whereas an animal cell is more randomly arranged. To give you a short quiz, what is this? This is a plant cell because it is regularly arranged. This is an animal cell because it is irregularly arranged, and as you can see, it is very circular. This is a very tricky question. This one is actually an animal cell because as you can see, there are no regular formats and evident inside this picture. To summarize what we learned today, what kind of cell is this? This cell is a plant cell because as you can see, it is very regularly arranged. This is a bacteria because as you can see, there is no dot inside the cell that represents a nucleus. Thank you for listening to me today, and I hope your understanding of cells has improved.